Hello, everyone, and welcome to Score English, the podcast where we break down the language of sports to help you improve your English. I'm your host and pro correspondent, Alex. Today, we are serving up our definitive, super expanded episode on the elegant and intense sport of tennis. We're going to cover everything from its history and technology to its greatest champions, and of course, its very unique vocabulary. To help me explore it all, I'm joined by our active learner, Gabriella. Welcome.
Hey, Alex, I'm so glad to be here. I have to admit, when I think of tennis, I think of powerful athletes, but also a lot of tradition and some roles I don't quite understand. It feels a bit inaccessible sometimes.
That's the perfect place to start. It has this reputation for being very proper, but it's also one of the most athletic and revolutionary sports in the world. And to understand the modern game, we have to look at how the equipment itself has evolved.
You mean the rackets? I imagine they weren't always the high-tech things we see today.
Not at all. For nearly a century, players used heavy wooden rackets. Think of a legend like Chris Evert in the 1970s. Imagine trying to hit a modern 130-mile-per-hour serve with what was essentially a beautifully crafted but heavy wooden plank. The sweet spot for hitting the ball perfectly was tiny, so the game was all about control and precision, not pure power.
Wow, that paints a picture. So it was a completely different game.
Completely. Then came the revolution, first with metal rackets used by players like Jimmy Connors, which added a bit more power. But the real game changer was graphite. Suddenly, you had these light, strong rackets with huge heads. A player like Agassi could swing with incredible speed and generate massive power and spin. That technology is what created the modern power baseline game.
So the technology literally changed the strategy. And the biggest stages to see these strategies are the 4 Grand Slams, right? I know their names, but they all feel very different.
They have completely unique personalities. Let's start with Wimbledon. It's the oldest, played on grass in London. It's more than a tournament, it's a pilgrimage for tennis fans. There's a quiet reverence to it. You hear the unique, soft thwump of the ball on the grass. You see the ivy-covered walls of center court, the royal box, the strict all-white dress code for players. It's steeped in tradition.
That sounds so elegant. What's the total opposite of that?
That would be the U.S. Open in New York. Imagine Arthur Ashe Stadium at night under the bright lights with 23,000 people roaring. There's music playing during changeovers, celebrity sightings in the stands. It's a loud, unapologetic, energetic spectacle. It feels like a 2-week party celebrating tennis.
Okay, so you have tradition on one side and a party on the other. What about the other two?
The French Open, or Roland Garros in Paris, is the ultimate physical test. It's played on slow red clay. The ball bounces high and slow, leading to these incredibly long, grueling rallies. By the end of a match, players are covered in the red dust, having slid into shots for hours. It's a battle of endurance. And then you have the Australian Open in Melbourne, which is called the Happy Slam. It has a very relaxed, friendly vibe, but players also have to battle the extreme summer heat, which becomes a real opponent.
It's amazing how different they all are. So let's talk about the players who have conquered all of them, the GOATs, the greatest of all time.
In the modern men's game, that conversation is defined by the big 3, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic. Their rivalry wasn't just about winning, it was about pushing each other to unimaginable heights.
Is there one match that truly defines their rivalry?
So many, but the one everyone points to is the 2008 Wimbledon final between Federer and Nadal. Picture this, Gabriella. It's nearly dark on center court. The clock has ticked past 9 p.m. after multiple rain delays. Flashbulbs are going off in the crowd, which is against the rules, but nobody cares. You have Federer, the king of grass, against Nadal, the king of clay, trying to conquer his rival's kingdom. The quality of tennis is just breathtaking. Many still call it the greatest match ever played.
That gives me chills just hearing about it. Were there rivalries like that in the women's game too?
Oh, absolutely. The rivalry that defined a generation was Chris Evert versus Martina Navratilova. It was a clash of titans. On one side, you had Chris Evert, the Ice Maiden, cool, calm, and incredibly consistent from the baseline, never showing emotion. On the other, Martina Navratilova, a powerful and athletic lefty who charged the net relentlessly. It was consistency versus aggression, and it captivated the world for 80 matches.
And we can't forget the American rivalry in the 90s, right?
Exactly. Pete Sampras versus Andre Agassi. Sampras had this fluid, powerful serve that was almost untouchable. Agassi had a flashy style and the best return of serve the game had ever seen. It was the ultimate server versus returner showdown.
All of this highlights just how much of a mental battle tennis is.
It's everything. They call it chess at 100 miles per hour for a reason. One of the most telling stats is unforced errors.
Right, that's when a player makes a simple mistake, correct?
Exactly. Imagine a player has an easy mid-court forehand. The opponent is completely out of position, it's a guaranteed point, and they hit the ball straight into the net. That's an unforced error, and you can almost feel the collective groan from the stadium. It's a lapse in focus. The greatest champions build a mental fortress to minimize those errors on the pressure.
And that mental fortress is probably strongest when serving to stay in the match.
That's the ultimate test. You're down 5-6 in the final set. The stadium is silent. One mistake, one double fault, and the match is over. The pressure is immense.
And the way players handle that pressure is often based on their style of play, which you've mentioned. Can you break down those styles for us?
Of course, the most common is the baseliner, who plays from the back of the court. An offensive baseliner like Agassi tries to hit winners. A counterpuncher like Andy Murray is a defensive specialist who turns defense into offense. They thrive on slower courts like clay, where they have time to set up their shots.
And the opposite style, the serve and volleyer, is becoming rare.
Extremely rare. Back in the day, a player like Pete Sampras could use his huge serve to get to the net and put away an easy volley. But because of modern graphite rackets and advanced strings, players can hit returns with so much power and accuracy that it's now incredibly difficult to attack the net. The returner often has the advantage.
Which is why the all-court player like Federer who can do everything is so respected.
He's the complete package. Okay, after all that context, are you ready to finally decode the unique language of tennis?
I am so ready. Let's start with the most famous one. Why is zero called love?
It comes from the French word l'œuf, meaning the egg. The English players likely heard l'œuf and it became love. Simple as that.
My favorite piece of trivia. And if the score is tied at 40-40, it's deuce from the French for two. What about the slang term bagel?
That's when a player wins a set 6-0. The zero on the scoreboard looks like a bagel. It's a modern visual piece of slang.
Perfect. And finally, let's cover the high-stakes jargon for those pressure moments we talked about.
Right. A game point is when a player is 1 point from winning the game. A break point is when the receiver is 1 point from winning the game and breaking serve, a huge moment. And match point is the most intense of all, when a player is 1 point away from winning the entire match.
I see. So much drama. Okay, I have to ask about one more scoring situation that's always confused me. You mentioned that if a set score is 6-5, they play another game. What happens if it gets to 6-6?
An excellent question. That's when we have a tiebreak. This is a special game to decide the winner of the set. Instead of the usual 15, 30, 40 scoring, a tiebreak is scored with regular numbers, 1, 2, 3, and so on.
So it's just a race to a certain number of points?
Exactly. The first player to reach 7 points wins the tiebreak and a set, as long as they are ahead by at least 2 points. If the score is 6-6 in the tiebreak, it continues until someone has a 2-point lead. Tiebreaks are incredibly tense moments in a match.
That clears things up perfectly. Now, you mentioned earlier how racket technology allowed players to generate more spin. I've heard commentators talk a lot about topspin and slice. What are they referring to?
This is where tennis gets really scientific. Topspin is when a player brushes up the back of the ball, making it rotate forward as it travels. This spin causes the ball to dip down sharply after clearing the net and then bounce high and fast. Rafael Nadal's topspin forehand is one of the most devastating weapons in the history of the sport.
Alex, this has been an incredible deep dive. I honestly feel like I could watch a match from any era and understand not just the rules, but the story, the strategy, and the history behind it. But I have one last question. Do any of these terms we've learned make their way into everyday English?
Absolutely, and that's a perfect final topic. Tennis has given English several popular idioms. The most famous is "the ball is in your court." It means it's now your turn to take action or make a decision. For example, I've submitted my proposal, so the ball is in your court now. That's fantastic to hear. To quickly summarize our journey today, we've covered the evolution of tennis from wooden rackets to graphite power. We explored the unique personalities of the 4 Grand Slams. We delved into the GOAT debate, remembering legends and iconic rivalries. We broke down the crucial mental game and the different strategic playing styles.
And finally, we decoded the famous jargon of the sport, from love to bagels to match point.
Exactly. You're equipped with everything you need. My advice for our listeners is to go watch a classic match on YouTube, maybe that 2008 Wimbledon final, and see how all these elements come together in a beautiful, dramatic story.
That's the perfect homework assignment. Thanks so much, Alex.
My pleasure, Gabriella. And that's all the time we have for today on Score English. Join us next time for more sports and more English. Until then, keep practicing.